There comes a time in every specialist's life that the thing that made them special in the first place, regardless of industry or profession, where that specialisation starts to hurt them. And there's a pretty obvious reason for this, especially here in Australia, but it's one that I don't think gets discussed enough. Definitely hurt me in my career through various different stages, and it's one that I now help people overcome. I call it the specialist paradox, but why does it exist at all?
I think it's because the way that we enter the workforce in Australia is the same for almost everybody. Everybody starts as a casual, which means we're paid by the hour, and the more specialised we are, the more we make. Our value gets attached to short-term cash, which sets us up for a scarcity mindset. And that scarcity mindset, if we keep carrying it throughout our career, it starts to hurt us. And that's because the deeper we dive into our specialisation, the harder it is to replace us. And as anybody knows, the thing that devalues a business the quickest is not being able to transfer skills. It means you struggle to hire staff that can do what you do. And certainly when you eventually decide to exit your business, it's going to be really hard if the business fundamentally relies on you for it to operate.
Now this happens regardless of industry, but let's take lawyers as an example. They train for years, they study for years to become a lawyer, they finally get admitted, and they can finally charge that billable hour rate that they're all chasing. And as they climb up the ladder of hierarchy, they can charge more and more per hour. By the time they get to a principal, they might be charging $550, $650, $700, $1,000 an hour. That's their billable rate. And therefore they get trapped in that scarcity mindset that was set up by double downing in the specialization. And over the years, there have been people far smarter than I am that have come up with frameworks and ways of understanding why this problem persists with so many specialists. But I never found they worked for me. They never seemed to click with my brain, and I reckon it's something to do with my history. My history is patchy between blue collar and white collar. I started my career as a soccer referee and a blue collar tradesman. I then became a professional touring musician into white collar academia, and I became a lecturer and ran a team. I then moved into private business, and I end up working with both blue collar and white collar businesses. And that's where I found all of those frameworks started to fall apart. I needed to come up with a framework that worked for blue collar, worked for white collar, everywhere in between. And in particular, it needed to make sense for my brain so that I could start to understand, why do I get caught in the specialist paradox again and again? So I came up with a model of my own, something that a specialist could understand regardless of if they're blue collar or white collar, that still honors their specialization, but helps them create enduring value over time. I call it SPECS. SPECS stands for strategy, people, execution, capital, and structure. 5 things that everybody can understand. Let me show you how that works. So the first part of the SPECS model is strategy. That's working out where we are going. Now I know what you're thinking. You've done strategy before and it hasn't quite worked, but you've got to really consider, how are you doing strategy? Are you making it too complicated? Are there too many steps involved? Or have you made it practical? Have you made it tactical? Is it something that's actually achievable in a way that not just you can understand it, but the other people around you? Because if you don't know where you're going, you just end up making mistakes. So we need to set a pathway, a destination, and then we can start to work on how we're going to achieve it. Now that we've worked out where we are going, we can work out who's going to come with us. This is the people. Without the people, there's no way we're actually going to arrive at that destination. But if we don't strategize around what we do with our people, just like we do with every other aspect of our specialization, we're going to run into trouble. And like many specialists, you might find that working with people is your single biggest challenge.
And don't worry, it's not just you. People work as hard because people are the ultimate variable. Everybody's got their own vibes, everybody's got their own beliefs, everybody's got the things that they care about, and they're not always immediately compatible. So working with people can make it feel like your head is spinning. It doesn't have to make your head spin, and you can actually start this process really easily. Start by writing down behaviors that you actually care about. Already, you'll start to find things level out a bit in terms of what you believe in, and you'll start to find more people that seem to care about the things that you care about too. Personally, I'd suggest at least 3 beliefs that you can align on to get started with, and work it from there, but bring your people in and be part of the journey with them.
And just like that, you'll start to undo one of the biggest pains that exists when you triple down on your specialization and it starts to hurt you. Key person risk. This is when you're the only one that can do the things that you need to do to get to where you're going. Now we start to get into the nitty-gritty, which is the execution or how the work is done. But this is a problem for a specialist because as soon as we start talking turkey about how the work is done, that's when your specialist genes start to kick in and you want to get involved. You want to take the work from people rather than letting them do it themselves. And then we get caught in the specialist paradox again. Now we have to make sure that the entire life cycle of how your work gets seen, your work gets bought, your services get delivered, and people want to stick around and have more. You want to have that clearly mapped out and work out how the strategy, the people, and the execution all connect together. And if you don't, you'll end up fixing other people's execution mistakes forever. So what do we do about it? Hey, we actually don't need to make this one that complicated at all. Similar to what we believed in before when it came to the people, we've got to write down the task that we're always the ones executing and work on a pathway of how we hand them over. At the same time, we're going to map out a gap of what's happening. Why aren't people seeing our work? Why aren't people buying it? Why aren't they coming back to buy more? And if we can work out where those gaps are, then we can start to fix them. Come here. And then we've got capital. Now, before I even start talking about cash, I know what you're about to say. Dr. Mitch, I'm not good with numbers. Well, too bad. Because if you don't have your eyes on numbers, it's just akin to every decision you make is throwing more and more and more into the trash. Oh, jeez. Oh, man. But it doesn't have to be that way. It's 2026. There are so many tools to help you do it, and you don't need to be a killer accountant to do this. At minimum, you need to know 3 numbers. 1 is your revenue. That's cash coming in the door. 2 is your expenses. That's cash going out the door. And 3, what's your profit line? You can use those first 2 numbers to work it out. Already your understanding of capital within your specialization is going to improve just by getting a regular check on those numbers so that you know how to make decisions with the numbers. And then we've got structure. Structure is all the support functionality of how everything else operates. It's your procedures, it's your systems, it's the way you document things and how things get repeated without being manual every single time. But it's really easy to get caught up in the hype and the features war, especially as technology is emerging so quickly, it starts to grab our attention and distract us from what we really need. So what do we do about it? Start with the things that annoy you the most. So what's the number 1 most annoying thing for you? The second most annoying thing that you do in a loop? The third most annoying thing that you have to repeat all of the time? But we need to remain disciplined as specialists that we're not getting trapped by what is new and what is shiny. And you know which ones I'm talking about.
So that's the specs model. Hope that helps you understand a little bit more about how being a specialist can start to hurt you over time, but what you can do about it. If you click the link in the description below, you'll be able to check your own specs, regardless of what specialization you're in, and I hope that helps you even more. Catch you around.